Hi guys, Mr. N, we're back, Unit 2.09, opposite values. Please pay attention. It may look like a simple lesson, but there are certain things that will be tricky. And let's move on with some problems from your book. Okay, page 71, problem number 18. As you can see, you're required to simplify or basically evaluate the expression when your x equals -10 and your y equals -30. As always, when you have to evaluate expressions for certain values of your variables, you will take your variables and you will plug them in wherever they are, right? So instead of x, I'm going to put -10. Instead of y, I will put -30, and be careful how I'm doing it, right? My expression will be 40 minus 3 times negative absolute value, right? Absolute value of what? Of y. But y is -30. So the absolute value of -30. You see that -30 will be inside the brackets, plus absolute value of what? Negative. Now be careful because your x is -10. -10. Alright? And then I'm closing my brackets here. Moving on. PEMDAS tells me to start with parentheses. Now inside, well, here I got the brackets, right? So inside those brackets I have a parenthesis. I have minus 10. Minus 10, negative of the negative means positive. You basically change both signs. I mean, this minus 10 is nothing else but -1 times -10. And we know when you multiply numbers with the same sign, the answer will be positive, and this will be 10, right? And I will leave it inside the bracket. It will be absolute value of 10. Everything else will be what? Well, let's keep everything else the same way it is, right? These are inside the parentheses, and my expression stays 40 minus 3 times, in parentheses, I got absolute value of -30, negative absolute value of -30, right? So if you think about here, this is another tricky step. Absolute value of -30, we know is going to be positive, right? The distance to 0 of -30 will be 30 units. However, you have negative absolute value, so that will give you -30, okay? So your expression now would be 40 minus 3 times -30. What is the absolute value of 10? That will be positive 10. Okay, I'm still inside the parentheses. Well, I need to add -30 to positive 10. Okay, what is that? Well, 40 stays there, minus 3 times -30 plus 10. You're adding two integers with different signs. The rule said subtract the smallest absolute value from the largest absolute value. So you basically have 30 minus 10, right? Which gives you 20. And then keep the sign of the largest absolute value, which is -30. So inside the parentheses, you will have -30. Okay? So we're done with the parentheses. We have no exponents. Next, we have multiplication. Let's do that. Okay? 3 times -30. So your expression will be 40 minus 3 times -30 is going to be -90. And be careful here. You see I have a negative sign in front of my 3. I have a negative sign over there. You can do it in two different ways. You can say -3 times -30, which will give you positive 90. Or you can just leave it negative and multiply your 3 times -30, which will give you minus -90. And by the way, we know that minus will be plus, because when you subtract integers, you're adding the opposite of that number. You're changing both signs. And this way your answer here will be 130. Okay? And I hope you understand and you are able to follow me with every step. And as you can see, you need to be keeping your eyes open. and pay attention to every detail, right? Okay, one more. We did this one in class. Hold on. My computer is kind of lagging here, but anyway, next problem, instead of x, you're gonna use 2 over 5, right? There's one next one. Instead of y, you will plug in -7. So let's rewrite our expression. My expression will be what now? Minus 4 over 5. Minus makes a plus, right? Because you're changing both signs. So this will be 4 over 5 minus, okay, minus y, or negative y if you want, -7 minus, in parentheses, minus or negative x. What is your x? 2/5, right? Plus 1/5. This is inside the parentheses. Close the brackets. All right. Next, PEMDAS. Do I have parentheses? Yes, sir. Well, let's do that, right? So I have minus 2/5 plus 1/5. That will be what? That will be -1/5, right? You're basically adding two irrational numbers with different signs. Subtract the smallest absolute value from the largest one. Keep the sign of the largest one. 2/5 minus 1/5 is 1/5, but keep the sign of the 2/5 because that was the greatest one, and that's inside your parentheses. What else I have? Well, I can see in here that minus -7 or -7 will be +7, right? So it'll be 7 minus that inside my brackets. Everything else stays the same, 4 minus that. Good. Now before I will simplify this parenthesis, I can see again that I'm subtracting a negative number. What is the rule? Add the opposite. Okay, so basically here your parenthesis for 5 stay the same, would be what? Minus 7 and 1/5, and I would change that 7 and 1/5, that mixed number, I would change it into an improper fraction. How you do that? You multiply your denominators, which by the way remains, right? 5 times 7, and you will add the top. 5 times 7, 35, plus 1, 36. 4/5 minus 36/5 equals what? Okay, what I said is the rule. When you subtract real numbers, it applies to all the real numbers. I'm adding the opposite, right? So instead of taking away 36/5, you're basically adding its opposite, which is -36 over 5. And now I know that I have the same denominator, so I can perform that addition. And on the top, you only need to add 4 plus -36. What is the rule? The rule says if you're adding integers with different signs, subtract the smallest absolute value, in this case 4, from the largest absolute value, 36. 36 minus 4, I can write it here for you, 36 minus 4 equals 32. I'm going to write 32, but I will keep the sign of the largest one, which is -36. So the answer here will be -32 over 5 as an improper fraction, which actually is negative. Well, 5 goes in 32 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30. Out of 32, you will have a part of 2/5, right? -6 and 2/5 will be the answer for problem number 19. I hope you got it. Let's see if we have any more. We solved number 3 in class. We solved number 4, page number 4 in class. Actually, page number 4 and number 5. Let me find a different problem for you. Okay guys, let's do problem number 22 first. By the way, I just realized that on problem number 19, I copied the problem wrong, because in your book you have -y times, but you know what? It really doesn't matter as long as you understand how I solved the problem. the way I put it on my Windows journal here. Good. Problem number 2271. Absolute value equations. We're gonna get back to this one soon, right? When we talk about equations and absolute value equations and inequalities. But before we're getting there, you have to remember that whenever you have an equation in absolute value, okay, looking like this one, where you have a number on the right side and an absolute value on the left, you should rewrite this in two different ways. You're basically having two possible equations. Why is that so? Because if you have absolute value of x equals 2, for your x you may have -2, and for your x you may have 2, okay? But hold on, before I'm moving on with this problem, what do you guys notice? I have an expression that tells me that an absolute value of, this expression, my equation here, is saying that the absolute value of this expression equals a negative number. Is that possible? It's not possible, right? Because by the definition of the absolute value, we imply that every absolute value has to be positive. And noticing that, we can say there will be no solutions. This equation here has no solutions because I cannot find an x such that the absolute value of my number x minus 33 will give me a negative number. That's impossible. Okay, and we're done. This is it. So always pay attention. If somebody says absolute value of a equals negative, let's say 1000, that has no solution because there is no real number a such that its distance to 0 will be negative. In our world, that's not possible yet. Maybe if you guys discover the time traveling and some other unproven theories or laws, we can talk about it, but so far we will not. Okay, and this is how you solve problem number 22. Number 25, same story. An absolute value of an expression equals a positive number. We're good. I'm going to write two equations here. The first one, you just remove the brackets and you write everything the same way it is, because if the absolute value of -4 plus x equals 240, then -4 plus x could be 240. Okay. The other possibility is that so this is and, right? One equation. The second equation, -4 plus x could be equal -240. Why is that so? Because the absolute value of -40 is also equal to 240. Okay. And I'm going to solve each one of them. First one, I need to have x by itself, and I will add 4 to both sides. Okay, -4 plus 4, nothing. Your x equals 240 plus 4, 244. And this is your first solution. You can call it x sub 1, x1. And the second one, to find this one, I will add also 4 to both sides. Okay, 4 minus 4 is nothing. Your x2, your x sub 2, will equal -240 plus 4. I'm adding two integers with different signs. The rule said subtract the smallest one from the largest one. So basically you have 240 minus 4, which gives you what? 4 out of 10 would be 6. You borrow 1 from that, that would be a 3. 236, but keep the sign of the largest one, 236. Okay, so this will be the answers, the solutions for this problem, or you can write them as a set. Will be 244 and -236. Okay, now I hope this video will help you understand better this lesson. This is not as easy as it looks like. This is a basic and fundamental lesson that you need to learn, absolute values, because we're going to deal with this throughout, the whole math quest from now on. Algebra 2, trigonometry, pre-calculus, calculus, you name it. Okay? So please be careful. All right. Thank you.